All right, so make sure that you go to our Patreon page, which is patreon.com/HershNoeie. There will be a link in the description box down below. This video is going to talk about the housing market, of course, in Seattle cooling down. So could it be that the bidding wars are over? For now, it seems like they are. One of the big problems with housing in Seattle, or really in this entire region, is the fact that it is so expensive for buyers, whether they're first-time buyers or people who've owned homes multiple times, to actually purchase a home. The prices are just so high. Back over the last few months, the prices of homes have actually stalled in Seattle, meaning that they stop actually going up and they start to stabilize, and then the price started to go down. In Pierce County, which is Tacoma and all of those places, that didn't really happen that way. The prices of homes here have actually stopped going up so fast in some areas, but it's not the drastic change that you see up in Seattle. It used to be that in Tacoma you could probably buy two homes and they would equal the price of the average home. Two average homes would equal the price of an average home up in Seattle. That is no longer the case. The price in Seattle has dropped enough to where now the average is around, in Seattle, is still around a little over $650,000. That's still a lot of money. The average in Tacoma is now around $350,000. So things are changing in terms of the price. When you go up to Snohomish County, you're looking at about $450,000, right? So still, the home prices in Seattle are tremendously high, right? It's just they're not going up so drastically high. So a lot of people will feel like, oh, well, now it is back to being a buyer's market. In a way, because the bidding wars were basically where a home would be at a certain price, and then several people would actually be interested in this home, and then it actually started to increase the price of the home. A lot of folks would not do any sort of inspections. They would just jump right in on it. A lot of folks, sight unseen, they would just go ahead and make an offer on it. A lot of people would, basically purchasing cash only, because if you purchase in cash versus someone that's going to get financed, typically a person's going to sell to the person that's going to offer cash because, hey, it's right there. I don't have to wait so many days or anything like that. It's just cash and everything's done. So literally a lot of people were having a hard time up in Seattle purchasing a home. Now that still doesn't mean that most people can just go there and get a home. It's still very expensive, but the prices are not where they once were. And the newspaper was saying that now that Seattle is the fastest growing market for home prices to drop, they're falling faster here than they are any other place. Now, some people think this is a correction because obviously the prices were, and I talked about this, the prices were based on speculation. So a lot of homes and things like that were being sold at a certain price, and people were just attached to them, and then the price just kept going up, 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 and then finally the market just could not absorb that. Most people cannot afford a home that's going to be that price. So then people start to look at other places. Tacoma and Everett were those areas. King County was pretty much out of it. Anything in King County was just way too expensive, and it still is extremely expensive. And when I talk about King County, that includes Bellevue. So people were looking at Everett and Tacoma, Snohomish and Pierce County, because the prices were much more affordable. The homes were still looking very much like what you would find in Seattle. You would just have to deal with the commute if you were actually going to still work up in Seattle. So the area still grew in terms of the overall price, and it still is growing because people are still buying homes in Seattle. Let's face it, they're still buying homes, but they're not doing so at such a frenzy, right? They're not doing it to the point of where the supply is so low. Now, people who are selling homes in Seattle are waiting a little bit longer. It's still less than 20 days, but it's not like 10 days like it was before, or 5 days. There was a house that was for sale over right next to us here in Tacoma, and it lasted on the market for 2 days. And that was it. Because the home was priced right. It was a little bit below the average price of what you would find a home here in Tacoma. And it looked amazing on the inside. But it lasted for 2 days. So here, the effects are not quite the same as what you see up in Seattle, and I would assume that would be the case up in Everett. That still homes are going very fast. I think that when you start to increase the price, when they start approaching that 350 range anywhere in the country, you're going to have less and less people that are going to be on that, and you're going to have a lot less competition. That's just the way that it works. It used to also be that people were buying homes that were much more, that was us, that was much less than what they can afford, because then they could prepare for any sort of bidding wars and whatever they needed to do. Well, now that's not really the case in some parts of Seattle because, again, competition's not as high. Now, could all this stuff change? It could, because right now we're in the colder months of the year. The gray skies, most people are not going to want to move in the rain and the cold and the wind. So that's point A. Point B would be that the market was just so high, it was overinflated, that it pushed people out. People are no longer really looking at Seattle as often as they once were. Videos like this and others are talking about Tacoma because, to be honest with you, Seattle is amazing. As a city, it's an amazing city. There's a lot of fun stuff to do. It's really great, but there's also a lot of downsides to it. And I think that when folks actually live here, move here, they kind of get a sense of, okay, this is great to visit. It's great to visit here or live close by, but I don't necessarily want to live right into Seattle. After a while, the constant traffic gets a little bit annoying. I mean, in my case, after a while, just wanting to go, to the mall or going across town, yeah, you expect traffic, but you don't expect to just be in standing traffic. It's just everything you do, you really and truly have to base it around when is a good time. I remember Noelle and I talking about that. Oh, we should go to the International District. Oh, well, we probably have to wait because it's kind of the busy time right now. So we would literally have to wait at certain times or certain days of the week because we just didn't want to handle and deal with the traffic. Not that the traffic, there's other places people compare and they talk about, well, traffic here is worse than it is in Seattle. Yeah, there's plenty of cities that have much worse traffic than Seattle. It's not a competition of, which traffic sucks the worst. Traffic in general is just a opportunity cost. So we would just literally wait until it would be the right time. So I think for some folks, that is kind of where they are. They'd rather be in a city that's still great, but they don't have to deal with the constant traffic, the excessive expense, the problems with parking. So the quality of life in Seattle, especially with some of the administrative rules that are going in and laws, are making it a little less appealing for some people. Coffee connoisseur. It's making it a lot less appealing, right? Especially when you're looking at companies and businesses. So even though, and I think even next year, will this continue as far as houses in Seattle going down? Yeah, I think it may, but it only takes a little bit of something to change that. Amazon is supposed to announce its second headquarters. I've said before that I think it's Atlanta. I still think that. Some folks think it's going to be in the DC area, possibility, because I mean the odds are a much higher chance that it would be. There's 3 locations in the DC area that were being analyzed, so the odds are higher. But I've also said that it could be that Amazon's saying, nah, not really. We thought about it, just doesn't make good sense yet. And it's basically a card in their back pocket, right? So that if the city of Seattle doesn't do what they want them to do, then they're going to roll out HQ2. They've already narrowed it down. They can easily go and talk back to that city and say, yep, this is what we want to do. Amazon caught a lot of flack for doing this whole thing. It's a $1 trillion company, and it's asking for cities who literally have a small budget. I mean, most American cities, their budget's not that big for what they have to take care of. To offer incentives and different things for them to actually be there. So it could be a possibility that this whole Amazon HQ2 thing is not even going to happen. If that's the case and Amazon says, no, we'd rather do investments here in Seattle, stay here, have our HQ1 like we always have, and expand in different markets, which is what they've been doing. Keep in mind, Amazon has facilities, and I'm not talking the warehouse and distribution places, not those. But I'm talking about literal facilities where there's office workers. Office and tech workers, they have them all over the country and also into Canada and different places. So Amazon has been doing that quite often. They've been investing heavily. Really and truly, it doesn't make a lot of sense to have an HQ2, I don't think, because you're already doing that in different markets, from Atlanta to Boston to Philly to Pittsburgh, different places. So to me, it doesn't make a lot of sense, but I'm not running a $1 trillion company either. But if Amazon decides, you know what, we're just going to bulk up here in Seattle area, then that changes things. So I think that what we're seeing is a combination of many different things. The hype of the area is going down a little bit due to the price. It's going down a little bit due to the whole thing with Amazon possibly trying to have another HQ2. There was rumors that it was going to leave Seattle. I don't think that's going to happen. And so I think that places like Tacoma, which are really nipping away, more so than any other city, I think, in the region, Tacoma is really chiseling away at Seattle. And they're doing it kind of covertly, if you will. They're doing certain policies that kind of appeal to people more so than what you're going to see up in Seattle. Seattle has a great waterfront. You can't take away from that. It has one of the best skylines, I think, in the country. You can't take away from that. You can't take away from a lot of the cultural attractions. Those are there, but they're swamped by tourists. So if you're living there in Seattle, you have to kind of negotiate. Okay, do I want to sit and, again, deal with all of the clusterism? Now, it would be different in an extroverted city. Someone who commented on one of the videos, who've lived here for a couple of decades, even said that Seattle is an introverted city. And it was on a video that I didn't talk about the city being introverted. But it's very true. And for an introverted city, a lot of the people who are there are kind of an introverted type. So being around a huge cluster of people and bumping into you, that doesn't really work well for a lot of people. And so a lot of folks would rather be in a place where you don't have all of that. It's just busy, 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 busy until around 8 or 9 o'clock in the afternoon, and then things just die off, right? So Tacoma and Everett are completely different. They're very much a smaller city. Both of them are smaller cities. They're still urban. Tacoma more so than Everett. I mean, Everett downtown doesn't hold a candle to downtown Tacoma. But they're offering a lot more things. I mean, Everett is actually, Payne-Filled up in Everett is now going to have an airline, several airlines actually, fly out of there. So an alternative to SeaTac would be Payne-Filled up in Everett. So that's a big deal because a lot of people are going to be traveling up there, not necessarily from all the way down here, but people that are North Seattle or even downtown or what have you, and all the suburbs up to the north, and even those to the east would probably take a journey up to Everett. It just makes a lot more sense than to go all the way down to SeaTac, which is super crowded, super busy, You can go to an airport that is going to be not even close to that, right? And the entire airport has been fully leased up by airlines, right? It's not even done yet, and all the gate opportunities are gone. So that's a big boon for Everett because it literally brings a lot more people into the area to fly out, which brings in more hotels, more service industries, things like that. That's kind of chipping away at Seattle, even though SeaTac is not, the airport is not in Seattle, it's actually in SeaTac. But that's one opportunity that they're taking up there. That's an approach. Down here, we're looking at trying to be an economic juggernaut of our own by basically having logistics facilities. You know, there was one that just opened that is over 1 million square feet that just recently opened. And then there's another one, all right close to downtown. These are things that Seattle can't really offer, that they don't have the land for it. Tacoma is trying to chip away at employers by saying, if you are a big company, we will offer incentives for you to actually come here per employee. You know, in terms of entertainment and things like that, Tacoma is offering those opportunities. So people see that and say, you know, Seattle's great. I can go visit it whenever I want, and that's what we love about here. I could easily go up and visit and then come back, and things are a little bit more calmer. And I don't have to pay the super high expensive property tax. I don't have to pay for a home that's extremely expensive and just be caught into that. There's other things that are different up there in terms of just cost. So I think all of those things have added into people's concept whenever they're saying, do we want to purchase a home up in Seattle? It's great, but is it worth us being strapped for cash all the time? You can still work up there, make a lot of money, because down here you're not going to get paid much unless it's it depends on the job. But you're going to make a lot of money up there versus here for the same job, and yet the homes down here are almost half of what you're going to pay up there. So you might as well work up there and commute and deal with that versus actually having to figure out how to pay for it. So anyhow, yeah, I think that the whole bidding war is kind of over for now in Seattle. I think it will come back. I think that the price escalations that you've seen, I mean, just leapfrogging, I think that that's going to be done. Now the prices of homes in Seattle are about what they were when I first bought this home. So, and that was over a year ago. So they're dropping. I think they're gonna continue to drop a little bit more. I think probably the $500,000 mark, in that range, is probably where they're going to be and sit comfortably. Who knows? But I think for now, the bidding war is over for kind of most of the whole region. It's more competition in places like Pierce and Snohomish County still, because the prices are a lot lower. But even here, you don't see the frenzy like you once did before. Anyhow, hope you guys enjoyed this video. I don't want to keep talking about it and beating it to death. This is almost a 19-minute video. Hope you guys are having a great day. This is actually Halloween, so I hope you guys have a safe Halloween. And until next time, I will see you. Take care.